Welcome to the NFL Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. A special Thanksgiving Day props video for you guys. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guys as always, Mo Nawara in the Midwest and Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are going to be bringing you guys Week 12, Thanksgiving Day, 3 games to choose from, passing props, receiving props, rushing props, as we do each and every weekday of this regular season. So make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us. Also want you to head to TheLines.com. We've got all our great written content up on there, Mo, Nate, and the gang, as well as our great odds finder tool. You go ahead and make sure you're using that to shop those NFL lines, player props, and the like to the best of your ability across these U.S. sportsbooks. Nate, let's go ahead and kick things off with our first passing prop for Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, I mean, we were dancing around this last week when we're talking about fading different Vikings, and Justin Jefferson sure went under, but really it was about a lack of confidence in Kirk Cousins in a primetime spot against a good pass rush. Dallas just completely annihilated him. Now he faces New England, which is actually had just passed Dallas as the number one pass defense in DVOA, allows 188 yards per game through the air, and is second behind Dallas in adjusted sack rate. Matthew Judon, if Micah Parsons isn't the best individual pass rusher on the outside, it might be Judon. In 2 career at Foxborough, much tougher situation at Foxborough than here at home, but against Bill Belichick's defense, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks, and averaging 209 yards per game is Cousins. And they really just let him dink and dime the last time he faced them with Minnesota, averages 4.6 yards per reception. This year, Pats are keeping everything in front of them, 4.6 yards. I mean, lowest yards per reception. So I think Cousins, I'm just willing to bet confidently in the Patriots having a sound scheme, also probably limiting Jefferson because they're just so well coached and extremely talented at the back end. Those corners just aren't going to make that many mistakes. And the Vikings are pretty predictable with Adam Thielen not gaining enough respect for teams to have to balance coverage. So I don't think Cousins is really going to bounce back in yet another primetime spot.
Not on board with this one. Love the Vikings -2.5 here. I don't care about any of those stats, okay? These are fake stats accrued against fake quarterbacks. Look at who the Patriots have been playing. Bum Zach Wilson twice, bum Sam Ehlinger, and then Justin Fields, who had he's not going to throw the ball on you. He's running for 125, 150 every week. This is I just think this New England defense, they're solid. I don't think they're on the level of this Cowboys defense. And I don't know if Kirk Cousins is going to go over his prop total. I would lean yes, but it is still high kind of against a solid defense. But I like Minnesota in this game, so I'm not on board with Kirk Cousins just pissing down his leg again in another primetime game.
DVOA is not a fake stat, though, in terms of it is schedule adjusted, so it doesn't really matter who the Pats have played in that sense. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, Zach Wilson, probably not as good as Mr. Cousins, but he's also a little bit more mobile. And we talked about how bad Cousins is against pressure. And if the Pats are second in pressure rate and adjusted sack rate, then I do think he's in trouble again.
Yeah, there's very few quarterbacks slower than Kirk Cousins in the league, which will definitely not be helping him if Judon and company are able to get through that line. It feels high after, obviously, we saw him throw 105 yards against one of the best pass defenses, if not the best pass defense in the league, coming at him with those blitzes, to Nate's points as well. DVOA is not a fake stat. We don't believe that, but we do believe that the quarterbacks that the Patriots have played as of late for the majority of the season have been doo-doo. So there's points on both sides, but 250.5 does feel a bit high, probably siding with Nate a bit on this one. Go ahead and throw out your passing prop to us, Mo.
Yeah, I had a tough time finding anything in passing props. I thought all the lines were pretty reasonable. So looking for a little longer shot value here. How about Josh Allen over 2.5 passing touchdowns, plus 155 against this absolutely atrocious Lions defense? I if the Bills don't absolutely truck this unit, I'll be shocked. And the market will be shocked. The market is slamming Bills. The market is slamming the over. I think it was like 52 or something. It's already like 53.5.
54, yeah.
And the Lions, we know how bad they are. They're 31st in pass defense DVOA. They're 30th in EPA per play allowed passing. And a little sneaky thing, both teams in the top 10 in pace here. So maybe we get a few extra opportunities for Josh Allen. And I think we're buying a little bit low here, man. 2 total passing touchdowns in the last 3 games. And before that, he was averaging 2.7 touchdowns passing per game. So with the market telling me the Bills are going to score 4 touchdowns here, I'm getting plus 155 that 3 of those come from Josh Allen's arm. It seems a little too high. I am a little worried he's going to run 1 or 2 in because Detroit is so man heavy. Not too many teams play more man defense than Detroit. So if a lot of DB's backs are to him, we could see him just slam it in himself. But I'm willing to try for plus 155 that he's going to throw 3 of them.
Man, I mean, I would be worried about the rushing as well, but like you were saying, like you can carve this team up at any way you want, really. I mean, I watched the Giants do it last week, just out-yard the crap out of this team, and it came down to madness that caused that game to just be a complete pounding by the end of it. Couple turnovers in their end of the field for the Giants. Daniel Jones, not bad, honestly, made the catches, the throws that he needed to make. There were only like 2 or 3 throws that he really had to like be on the money for that throw to be completed. Guys are still running wide open down the field, or really more importantly, wide open on crossing routes within 5 to 10 yards, and then a ton of yards after the catch. So yeah, there's space all over the field against this Lions defense. I understand if you're Josh Allen and you don't want to get hit this game, I suggest just staying in there and throwing it. I mean, Daniel Jones ran when at the end of the game when he needed to, and that worked just as well as the pass. But I think you're happy to give Mr. Allen a break and allow him to just carve this defense up with his arm as opposed to his legs in this one.
First Thanksgiving pun of the episode, Josh, and you stuffed the second one in there. I appreciate that. We should also mention Jeff Okudah is probably out for the Lions with a concussion, and he's really their only decent defensive back. So yeah, I'm just like loading up on this game for DFS slate here. Really just trying to get as much passing options and variance in this game and hoping that we do get over that 53-point total. And Josh Allen, it's definitely a get-right spot for him, after playing very conservatively last week in Detroit, after all those turnovers. I think maybe now they let him sling it again, get his confidence back. But I am going to stick in this game when we talk about rushing props and actually go under Mr. Touchdown, Jamal Williams, shockingly leading the league in scores. But if you're a red zone specialist in a game where your team is a 10-point dog, you have a chance of getting phased out for sure. And Buffalo is 4th in DVO rush defense, allows 8th fewest rushing yards per game, and faces the 5th lowest rush play rate because they tend to build leads. That Buffalo defense, led by Matt Milano, was elite against the run last week against Cleveland, which is a team that just wants to run. They held them to 80 total rushing yards, held Chubb to 19 yards on 14 carries. And, Nick Chubb is better than Jamal Williams. The Browns' offensive line is better than the Lions' offensive line, although both are respectable for sure. I'm not dumping on the man. But 54.5 rush yards, I'm fine taking the under on that in the hopes that DeAndre Swift, who's getting healthier, gets a little bit more work, and that the Lions are possibly playing from behind a lot and using Swift more as a receiver.
Yeah, Swift's going to be in there as a receiver for sure. We didn't really even see him needed last game as Jamal Williams just went clean off against a Giants D that looked like Swiss cheese last week. Complete opposite story this week. I would completely agree. Mo, any thoughts on Jamal Williams under 54.5 before we get to your rushing prop?
I looked pretty hard at this one as well. I was definitely leaning toward the under here. All the same reasons Nate mentioned, really. Just could be in a negative script. And if anybody has any sanity there, they're going to get DeAndre Swift some more touches. So, The only thing that could push this over is honestly just hard-headedness from the Lions, which would you really be surprised if Dan Campbell just kept plunging into the line with Jamal Swift, even if it's 14-0? I wouldn't be. So that's really the only thing that could trip this up, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, speaking of running backs and hard-headedness and the lack of willingness to play your best running back, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys, and specifically Mr. Elliott. Jerry Jones has told us this offense runs through Elliott, or runs through Zeke, and then we saw Tony Pollard look like the second coming of Barry Sanders last week. So has Tony Pollard finally assumed this starting role? And follow-up question, Mo, does that even matter as you have Zeke over 43.5 yards rushing in this game? So maybe it doesn't matter that Tony Pollard's still going to continue to get the lion's share.
Yeah, I think we know at this point, and the team has kind of come to its senses that Tony Pollard needs to be the lead man in the backfield. We saw that obviously last week, but even still, like, it was a 57-43 split basically between him and Zeke. Zeke still getting 43% of the carries, and Pollard did a lot of his damage through the air, which we've seen in the past, and maybe the team, we don't know that this, like, I know everyone wants to see more Tony Pollard. This isn't that crazy. Like, even if Pollard is the top guy, giving him 60% and then most of the passing work, this is like pretty normal in 2022 running back shares. Like, they're not just going to hand him the ball 30 times. Okay. So Zeke still gets his 15 carries or whatever. I think he should pretty easily surpass 43.5 yards. I mean, he's only been under this number once. It was last week. He missed it by all of 2 yards. And they're facing a Giants defense that is pretty terrible against the run. Like you guys were just saying, they kind of got smacked by the Lions on the ground. They've been getting smacked all year, basically, as far as the advanced stats tell us. 25th in rush defense EPA, 24th in DVOA, 28th in defensive adjusted line yards. So if he gets his 15 carries, I think he should be a pretty big favorite to go over this number. I was kind of looking at Tony Pollard under 2. I just don't think there should be a 20-plus yard difference between these players' props. But that being said, if Tony Pollard gets, 15 carries, 20 carries himself, then he could definitely go over as well. So I like Zeke over a little more than Pollard under.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all like the Cowboys over Josh's Giants here, who are, like the Vikings, a total fake contender at this point. I mean, I didn't need to throw another stray at the Vikings. I apologize. But, the Vikings, the Giants could not stop the run. Zeke, 2 touchdowns last week, getting about plus 700 to get 2 touchdowns again, or to be the last touchdown of the game as they kind of wear down the Giants. I don't hate that. And there's a good discrepancy here. Mo was talking about 43.5 at FanDuel, which is where it sits. It's 46.5 at the other books. So that's why if you use our prop finder, you can find some good value there. I'm going back to the opener here in Detroit, where the total's been bet up to 54.5 as we speak, gentlemen. And why wouldn't you take the top receiver for the Lions? I'm on Ross A. Brown, just gobbling up targets for Detroit at a high rate. And you look at what number 1 receivers have done to the Bills recently. Tre'Davious White has been back at practice, but they still haven't thrown him out there, which means, he's not ready to be a shutdown force at all. And Christian Benford has been out there on an island getting smoked in the last 2 weeks by Justin Jefferson for 10-193 on 16 targets, by Amari Cooper 8-113, 2 touchdowns on 12 targets all season, or really in the last 6 to 8 weeks here. The Bills have just been getting crushed by whoever the opposition wants to target. Like Travis Kelce got 10 targets. Garrett Wilson got 9 targets. Amon-Ra St. Brown is far more talented than Garrett Wilson, if that's who the Jets wanted to feature. But the point is, the scheme from Buffalo is they're not willing to bend to one receiver, it seems. So, I mean, his prop at 74.5 yards, 7.5 receptions with good plus money on that. Those are high, but I mean, he's getting such a high target share from Jared Goff. Still no DJ Shark or Josh Reynolds, I believe. And we do expect the Lions to be playing from behind. So I'm all on board with the Sun God here.
Yeah, actually, I think Josh Reynolds might play in this game. He might actually return, but I'm still not super worried about that. I'm on Ra, especially that those third down conversions, man. I think he's got like more than any other slot receiver right now from that position, especially when he's healthy. So yeah, I'm following him as he's like. It's also insane if you look at Jared Goff's numbers when Amon-Ra plays versus when he doesn't play. When Amon-Ra plays, Jared Goff is like a top 6 quarterback in the NFL. When Amon-Ra doesn't play, he's like the worst quarterback in the. I'm not even making that up. It's wild his stats when the sun god is out there, as you say. What do you make of that pick there, Mo? And what's your receiving prop for us?
Yeah, Amon-Ra's basically been unstoppable all year. There's nobody else left to throw to there. That being said, this line is really high as well, so I'd be a little scared. 7.5 receptions, you just don't. That's usually like Devontae Adams territory. So market giving him a lot of respect for sure here. Probably not a spot I would bet it either way, but man, yeah. I just if this over steam is worth anything, then it probably should go over.
Yeah. Who do you got for us on your receiving prop before we close things out here, Mo?
So I was digging a little deep on receiving, like usual. You guys know me. I don't like to take the layups. Saquon Barkley over 20.5 receiving yards. 5 targets each of his last 2 games where they lost, against the Seahawks, against the Lions. They were down double digits in both of them. Now, he only turned those 5 targets into 22 yards, but we're going to ignore that and look at his opportunities here, okay? I get that, like, Daniel Jones isn't a big dump-off guy. He likes to push the ball downfield. But that being said, I don't know if this is a matchup where he can do that, because I was looking at the injury report. Man, oh man, the Giants might be in trouble here. Could have 4 starting linemen out for this game. In those sorts of situations where the quarterback just can't have time to get the ball down the field, I think you see more short passing concepts, more screens, stuff like that, as the quarterback and the coaching staff try anything to make sure they can get the ball out and try to get at least some yardage and not expose the quarterback to Micah Parsons and this pass rush. He has a history of doing very well in the passing game against Dallas. Numerous 8-target games. He has a 16-target game, if you guys can believe that, against the Cowboys. The 4 targets he got earlier this year against Dallas were, as far as I could tell, a career low. He did have one where he had 1 target, but he got hurt because he had 2 carries in that game, I think. So ignoring that one, he's just been kind of a target magnet against the Cowboys. So 20.5, he's only got to get to his season average of 21 yards. And I think he should honestly be past that in this matchup. So not a spot where I'm excited at all about the Giants offense. So that does kind of make me lean toward some dump offs here and even the potential to be way behind and maybe just have some check downs if they're down 17 and just garbage time in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, this is going to be a harsh reality for the Giants this week. If you look at their injuries, they're not going to be able to run the ball. So I can start supporting your point with that, Mo. As you mentioned, 4 starting offensive linemen and 2 backup guards are also hurt for the Giants this week. They lost a couple players last week, including Richie James, who was their second wide receiver, depending on where you put Darius Slayton and where you put Wan'Dale Robinson, who also went down for the season last week. So basically, their top 4 wide receivers, their top 5 or 6 offensive linemen, including 2 backups, are all down this week. And yeah, last week, I think Giants fans were just clamoring for Daniel Jones to just dump the ball to Saquon. Like, the only positive plays that Saquon was going to be involved in, because there's 0 holes being created by this offensive line, was through the air. And towards the end of the game, he started to get those receptions a bit more. I think Daniel Jones was told specifically, dude, stop looking down the field 20 yards for Ellinger or Bellinger or any of these backup tight ends at this point. Just go ahead and dump it off to the best running back in the league and go from there. So I'm going to actually take one more prop, guys. I know I didn't have a passing or rushing one, mostly because we're not going to just pick every single wide receiver, running back, and quarterback playing in this game or in these 3 games on Thanksgiving. But I am going to take Gabe Davis in that shootout that we are expecting in that Buffalo-Detroit game. It's really because Gabe Davis just thrives in games where the opposition gives up big pass plays. As we know, he's a deep threat, and also gives up, there's points to be scored, right? This is a 54.5 point total right now, 54 in some places still. In his last 2 games for Gabe Davis, 6 for 93, 5 for 68, 17 targets in that time span, and a 93% snap share. That's his snap share pretty much for the season, 92%, 93%. And everything all the games where he's gone over this total this season, which has been like 5 times, has been in games where there's more than 44 points scored. So in those low scoring games, he's obviously much less impactful, and against bad defenses, passing defenses, right? And that's what we have in the Lions, maybe the worst pass defense in the league, if not bottom 2 or so. And specifically, they're awful again in terms of their defensive average depth of target, that dot, if you will. They're just the teams that give up a lot of yards, a lot of air yards, are the teams that Gabe Davis has done well against. Unsurprisingly, bottom 10 teams like Minnesota, Kansas City, the Rams, and obviously the Steelers are a little bit better, but still smacked the Steelers with 171 yards in that game on like 3 receptions, right? So that's what we're looking for here. Detroit specifically versus a wide receiver 2, 26th in DVOA, specifically versus a wide receiver who lines up on the left side of the field, which is where Gabe Davis is lining up, 30th in DVOA. So I know that we've called that stat not real, but I think we all feel pretty comfortable saying that is a genuinely real thing for Detroit, that they cannot stop the ball through the air very well.
And they're tied for to your point about allowing big plays, they're tied for 3rd in explosive pass play rate allowed, as far as like 3rd highest allowed. So definitely exploitable deep.
For sure. It's going to be a pretty fun Thanksgiving either way. At least with one of these games, it'll be a high-scoring affair, we hope. I'm not sure that the Giants are really going to be able to hang around in that other game. But that is all the time we have for you guys in this one, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. We're going to be coming back to you. At least Nate and I will, TBD on Mo, but we will be back with a video for you guys for these Sunday games as well. So make sure that you continue to come back to us, like and subscribe to that page. And until we see you next, happy betting.